I think what we're doing to protect American citizens here is the right thing.
Well, at the hearings today in D.C., the head of the National Security Agency you just saw there, General Keith Alexander, he defended the NSA surveillance programs. Meanwhile, the man who kicked off the firestorm by leaking secret documents to the press, he's still on the lam. Edward Snowden, he remains at large, but he is still talking, of course, telling the South China Morning Post, never heard about that daily before today, quote, "I am neither traitor nor hero. I am an American." He also told that paper that U.S. intelligence agents hack computers in China as well. To that I say, shocker. Anyway, stateside here, there continues to be questions whether or not Congress was misled about the secret programs. Many may remember back in March, some of these same questions were asked. The director of the National Intelligence, James Clapper, he was asked point blank if data is collected on Americans. Take a listen to his answer.
Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly.
Oops. Following the leaks, Capitol Hill appeared divided between lawmakers who say they were taken by surprise and those who say, no, I knew this was going on. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid says he doesn't have patience for lawmakers who claim they weren't briefed on the surveillance programs. On Tuesday, he said, quote, "We've had many meetings that have been both classified and unclassified that members have been invited to. They've had every opportunity to be aware of these programs," end quote. Meanwhile, American Civil Liberties Union and the New York Civil Liberties Union, they filed a lawsuit Tuesday as expected against the Obama administration, challenging the constitutionality of the phone surveillance program, citing Fourth Amendment concerns. The suit goes on to say that the program, it violates both the First and, as mentioned, Fourth Amendments. I've talked to these guys about it. I'm curious from your end. Your new best friend Rand Paul was talking about that this was the worst thing ever here, that it was an attack on the Fourth Amendment. It's a libertarian argument I've heard from many liberals and even the ACLU, the idea of the ACLU and Rand Paul together, interesting. But anyway, other conservatives say, including the Speaker of the House, McConnell and others, get out of the way, leave the program the way it is. It's necessary to protect America. Where do you fall?
Well, I think it's certainly a delicate balance. It's a product of the time. No, it's a product of the times that we live in, and I think it's a balance between protecting Americans from terrorism and keeping our rights and our privacy. And what I think, regardless of where you fall on this issue, because I think most Americans are sort of in the middle there looking for that balance. Politically, this is really problematic for the White House because it has taken them completely off message. They've had no second-term agenda. You would look at gun control and things like that. The loudest voices so far in support of the program have been Republicans. The ones that have come out, Speaker Boehner was the one who leapt to it. So it doesn't look, he's going to have more problems, the president, on this in the administration, on the editorial pages, than he seems to be having in Washington. But the problem is the White House is not driving a message right now. They're on defense. They're having to respond to all these inquiries.
No debate, but I'm asking more about the program. And I will say, Dom, when I listened to Clapper saying, are we collecting anything on Americans? Nope. And then they asked him again, not wittingly. They asked him about this last week, and he said, oh, you know what, when he asked me the question, it was like, do you, the gotcha type question for him. And he says, what, how about telling the truth? You know, you swore to, you're under oath there. You're supposed to tell the truth. And the idea that the government, any government, Republican or Democrat, they'll decide when to say the truth under a public hearing about what they're doing. That was more a little scary to me. And that he justified the answer after the fact.
Tells you a lot about Washington, no offense, whether it's a Democrat in office or whether it's a Democrat or whether it's a Republican. I mean, and not only that, the body language said it all. What about eye-to-eye contact, you know? So, I mean, but I do agree with what Jessica just said, though, seriously, Richard, in terms of President Obama has been taken completely off message.
Yes.
And now the only question is, what's next? Is there another shoe to drop on this thing? And I have a funny feeling there may be a few shoes.
But the only thing I'm surprised about this, listen, I'm with you. This table has a problem with unchecked power of this or any administration with this. This started under Bush, and certainly it's continued, if not even expanded, under Obama. And I'm worried about the next president, whatever his or her politics are, that would have this kind of power. That all said, it doesn't look like there's any political fallout on this thing for him. You think anybody cares that we're trying to hack China? I mean, you're probably going up a couple points in a few places in this country. What I'm saying is there isn't a political problem for him on this, and there seems to be relative apathy when it comes to the general public. This is a very important story. I just don't know the public cares.
I'm not so sure the public cares either, and we've got some polls that indicate, people generally view the program negatively, and they don't want you to spy on Americans, but they're okay if it helps you find terrorists, and that seems to be the argument that both the White House and Congress is sticking to at this point. So I'm not so sure what the downside is for the president.
It's not like they're listening to Jessica's phone call for where they're going out on Saturday. This is more, there's a trove of information. And then they do have to go to FISA if they want to listen to your calls and everything else. There are some
supposed to work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are checks and balances which muddies this. It's not that, yeah, you got us, we're listening to all your phone calls and going through all your credit card reports. That's not what's happening. It's still too unchecked, I grant you, but that's why I think this issue skates. We're not talking about this.
I disagree, though, because I think it plays into the narrative that this is an administration off the rails. Like, they're out of control, they're expanding their powers and overreaching in several different areas.
Beyond comical, though, when I'm hearing this, that this administration out of control, when the last administration basically made up a reason to go to war that we're still fighting.
Let's not blame Bush right now.
Yeah,
like that's the talking points of the Obama administration.
Bad overreach, but the NSA a good overreach on the. I mean,
but that's my point. It's like all these different tentacles of overreach. You see it even here in Westchester with the HUD issue. You're seeing it all over the place. You're seeing many different agencies expanding of the federal government.
Oh, absolutely. Points for Stalin. Yeah.
No, I think it's a very real narrative about this administration.
I just think it reinforces pre-existing beliefs. If you liked Obama, this isn't going to hurt him. If you didn't like Obama, then this just is more proof that he's the worst president ever. So
that's very interesting about the polling with this. Americans seem to like this president, so it's not much of a big issue. Nobody cares. As you have pointed out, Richard, the question becomes, what happens when there's a president that we don't like?
Yeah.
That's the big question.
The media likes this president. I don't know.
The media.
And let's be honest, we're not really going to have a debate about the spying program and about the surveillance thing. This debate has been had, and if it's had at all in Congress, it's going to be behind closed doors. This debate isn't going to happen, even though the president says he welcomes it.
There has been a hue and cry demanding it, and I think Washington, that's what this week was about. Do they really want us, how deep do they really want us to get involved? And I don't think the public's demanding it, even though I think we should. All right, when we come back, a huge issue that I argue Republicans should want even more than Democrats. It is front and center in Washington, and there's been some movement on it. Immigration reform passed a major hurdle yesterday. We're going to break down what comes next and if a pathway to citizenship will ever become a reality.